Today on Ancient DOS Games, we're taking a look at the adventures of Captain Comic, perhaps one of the first shareware games ever produced and certainly one of the first shareware platformers. It never sold well, and to be honest, it doesn't play that well either, but for a PC game as old as it is, made by a single individual, it's an interesting piece of DOS gaming history, and quite frankly, I'd rather play this game over the DOS version of Mega Man any day. Not to mention, it obviously sparked enough interest to have an unlicensed NES port made by Color Dreams, which also turned out to be one of that company's very first games. Anyways, let's take a look at the game stats. Captain Comic was created by Michael DeNeo and released in 1988. It's a one-player run-and-gun platformer limited only to 320 by 200 16-color EGA graphics and PC speaker sound. As for its release date, this is where things get a little ambiguous. Like, the game could be downloaded from lots of places, including the place I always seem to recommend, the RGB Classic Games website at www.classicdosgames.com, but some places say the game is still shareware, while other places say it's now freeware. And I can't find any definitive information about which is right. That said, the shareware version of the game has always been the full version, simply asking for a registration fee. So, one way or another, you get the full game, shareware or otherwise. So the story's fairly straightforward. You play the role of Captain Comic, the galactic hero, who's on a quest to recover 3 treasures which were stolen from the planet Omsoc, and taken to various locations on the planet Tombi. Actually, those are kind of curious names for those planets. I mean, if you reverse the letters in Omsoc, you get Cosmo. And if you reverse the letters of Tombi, you get IBM AT, which was a typical home computer at the time. Gameplay is fairly straightforward as well, but the controls can be slightly awkward, at least in the original version of the game. Later versions allowed you to change the controls and even introduce joystick support, but I'm going over the very first and original version of the game, which didn't do either. The default controls work best if you have a numeric keypad, although you can use the arrow keys to move. Using the 4 and 6 keys of the numeric keypad to walk left and right is better, because the 0 key on the keypad shoots your fireballs, and it's much easier to jam that key repeatedly with your thumb as opposed to your pinky finger. Spacebar is your jumping key, which works fine, and the alternate key right next to it is used to go through doorways. So far, it's not too bad, but there's one key left. This key that's left activates a special device known as the Teleport Wand, which is used to teleport you a few spaces in any direction without having to jump. Now, before I tell you which key is your teleport key, I want you to take a guess. Take a wild guess which key on the keyboard is your teleportation key. Those of you who get scroll lock aren't too far off. It's actually the caps lock key of all things. And because of the unique way caps lock is handled by computers, when you turn caps lock on, you start teleporting repeatedly until you turn it back off. It's a little awkward to say the least, since if all you want to do is teleport once, you have to push the key twice, otherwise you just keep teleporting over and over again. The controls are also a little unresponsive. Tapping a key very quickly sometimes doesn't register, and you have to make sure to release movement keys before you reach the spot you want to stop moving, otherwise you'll overshoot, sometimes by a full space worth, leading you to an untimely demise down a bottomless pit. Now, this isn't a very long game by any means. If you know what you're doing and where to go, it takes about a half hour to beat from start to finish. But you do collect a number of interesting things along the way. The 3 treasures you're looking to obtain are the gems, the gold, and the crown, in that order. The moment you have all 3 treasures, you teleport back to your ship and the game ends. 2 items you'll come across repeatedly are cans of Blastola Cola and shields. Each can of Blastola adds 1 to the total number of fireballs you can have on screen at any time, up to an ultimate maximum of 5. Shields, on the other hand, restore your health. Or, if you're already at full health, they give you an extra life. Or, if you're at full health and full lives, you get a whole bunch of points. You also get extra lives when you recover one of the treasures, or get 50,000 points. And if either of these events happen while you have full lives, your health is refilled, and you get bonus points as well. You also curiously get bonus points for each unit of health you have left when you fall down a pit. It's a curious feature that was eventually removed in later versions of the game. There's 5 other items you'll only find once, but you keep them forever once you have them. The first item you'll get is the door key, which allows you to open doors. Simple enough. The next item is the corkscrew, which causes your shots to fly in a special zigzag pattern, allowing you to hit enemies which normally can't be hit because they stay on the floor. Next are the boots, which allow you to jump higher. Next is the teleport wand, which is a very interesting tool. When you activate it, an attempt is made to teleport you to the lowest surface that's exactly 3 tiles in front of you. If there is a surface there, you'll teleport onto it. If there isn't, you'll simply rematerialize without going anywhere. The neat thing about this wand is that you can use it to not only get past gaps that are dangerous to jump across, but you can also use it to go to places that seem like they should be inaccessible. The last item you come across is the lantern, which is needed to see what you're doing while inside the castle at the end of the game. Don't really have much else to say about the game itself, so here's a few strategies to help you out if you want to give the game a go. Firstly, unlike the last game I reviewed, Firehawk, the enemies in this game continue to move even while off screen and will also spawn in at random moments. Always wait a moment while going through the difficult sections and move at a slow pace to give the enemies time to come on screen so you can hit them while they're still far away. If you rush through the hard parts, you're going to take a lot of damage. Though, don't be surprised when you hit 0 health and live through it. You have to be hit while you're at 0 health to lose a life. It's also important to learn how the enemies move. Most enemies either bounce around the screen or leap off the ground. In either case, if an enemy is closing in on you, position yourself or jump in such a way that the enemy will miss you and then attack while it's moving away from you. Another useful tip is that you can safely walk across any gap that is only 1 space big and the floor on the other side is exactly 1 space below you. One last tip is to shoot often, but try not to hold the fire button down for long. Your fireball gauge under normal circumstances will never deplete, unless you hold the button down, because you lose fireball energy based on how long you hold the fire button down for and nothing else. Only hold the button down if you're doing a technique like jumping and creating a wall of fireballs, and even then, once you have all your shots in the air, stop holding the button so you can recharge some of that fireball energy. Now, as far as DOSBox settings are concerned, this game works with practically any of them, so just set your cycles count to auto or max, and since this is a 2D game using only 16 colors, graphic scalers can make the game look much smoother. And lastly, if you're playing an older version like I am that's missing joystick support, you can always just use the DOSBox keymapper to get around that. So that's all I really have to say about Captain Comic. It's an interesting piece of history since it doesn't play that well, but is surprisingly memorable despite that shortcoming. Maybe it has to do with just the nature of the game. I mean, you're playing as a character named Comic, you're fighting unusual enemies such as birds, atoms, beach balls, space pollen. You collect an eclectic array of items to help you out too, like a corkscrew of all things. And your firepower is attained by drinking cans of trademarked carbonated sugar water. It's not only imaginative, but it was original for its time, and that's probably why it stands out as well as it does. Anyway, stay tuned for episode 22 of Ancient DOS Games. We're going to be taking a look at a first-person shooter where you're not only on a quest to rescue your dog, but there's also gambling involved in the process. Actually, that's a very strange combination. Now, if you think you know what game it is, send your guess to adg@pixelships.com and make sure to tune in next Saturday to see just how interesting a game it is.